Hey everyone, I'm Mary Beth McAndrews from Dread Central, and I am here today with Eskil Vogt, whose last name I apologize for butchering. He is the director of the new film, The Innocents, and the writer of the film as well. Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
I'm very excited to chat with you about this movie that ruined my night last night, and I mean that in a as a compliment.
Well, that's the power of cinema, right?
The
To
power
ruin
of
people's
cinema.
day and nights.
And
Yeah.
yeah, but so I very like basic first question, but like where did this story come from? Because you wrote Thelma, which has got a similar vibe, but with older people, like with adults and younger women. But curious, like where this inspiration came from for The Innocents.
Well, I guess, and people can take this the wrong way, but I don't think I would have made this movie if I hadn't become a father and had kids of my own.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so, but it's not like my kids are the kids in the movie, and well, hopefully, I don't know what they're doing
You
when I'm
never
not looking.
know.
Yeah, but I've never been very curious about childhood. I mean, when I was a child, I wanted to be a teenager. When I was a teenager, I wanted to be an adult. And when
Yeah.
I was an adult, I kind of put all that behind me. And I have friends who always kept referring to their childhood in a very nostalgic way. But I
Mhm.
was very happy with growing up. And it was because I became a father that I suddenly had access to that period in time, and was reminded of what a weird time childhood is. You know, it's so radically different from being an adult. You just experience everything in a
Yeah.
different way. And I just got the feeling that my kids are living in sort of a parallel universe. And even if they kind of we try to talk to each other, we don't really communicate about the important stuff. You know, we kind of move close to each other, but we don't connect in that deep way where you really understand how they feel and experience stuff. So I just became fascinated with that, and I think I just wanted to film kind of the secret world of childhood.
So you filmed The Secret World of Childhood, and it is pretty violent and pretty intense, and not a typical way you see kids interacting in movies, which I appreciate though. And I was curious if you were ever concerned about people being upset with how real you treat these kids.
Well, a lot of people ask me, you know, how can you put kids through like filming scenes like that,
Yeah.
and that's maybe the question I get the most. And it's
Hmm.
actually, I mean, I was very concerned for the kids, that they have a good experience, that they feel like
Yeah.
collaborators, that it didn't feel that it was a good experience for them, you know.
Yeah.
So we prepared them for a lot of the more hardcore scenes, in a way, like where they had to go deep into negative feelings of fear or
Yeah.
violence or whatever. And actually, when we filmed those, they thought it was fun because they used to play acting, you know. They are maybe that's why we chose them, because they're all kids do like those role-playing games, but I guess those who are the best actors maybe have done a little more of them, so they understand what's fiction and what's real. They talked about the characters, understanding that it was not themselves. I mean, I had discussions with the youngest, she was 7 at the time, about her character's motivation and stuff. So they had a blast filming the more violent scenes. They thought that was fun.
That's amazing though. And also like this is a film that really does go to show you like kids are smarter than we give them credit for. And kids understand way more than we give them credit for, which I really appreciate in horror because kids have a very specific role in horror movies. And these kids have agency in a way that it's rare to see.
Well, I feel that when I started writing this, you know, it was about, for me, the magic of childhood, and that meant these kids had some supernatural abilities. And then I started to think, am I just doing what everyone else is doing and making stories about young people with magical abilities? And I just felt that that was something different, that most of those films and TV shows are about puberty. you know. It's about what's
Yeah.
happening to my body, and I have to close
Yeah.
the bathroom door because my aunt is coming in and like webs are shooting out of me, you know. That's the most of those stories. And my movie was about childhood. It was about very small kids, and I had to be true to that. And at the same time, there's a lot of movies, and my movie get lumped in with those, you know, about the scary kids. But most of those films are about adults looking at kids, not understanding kids, being on the outside of kids, and thinking, oh, what's happening there? They look so cute, but they have a mean gleam in their eye, and maybe it's the devil, you know. And my movie wasn't like that. I wanted to be with the kids in their inner circle, understand what they were thinking, and the parents are more of the background, you know. They don't really know what the parents are doing or what the parents are thinking.
Well, and also the parents, the adults become puppets in a way. And I really liked that as well. Like these kids are, again, like a similar theme of like kids have their own little world and it's like they are smarter and are capable of way more than adults, I think, give them credit for. And another thing about the film I wanted to talk about with you is your use of disability, specifically with Anna's character, who is severely autistic, and why you wanted to have a character in the film that had this kind of nonverbal disability, and what you kind of wanted, why you wanted to include that in her character.
Well, in the beginning, I was just working with this kind of secret, closed off world of childhood. And while in early stages, while I was working on that, I read an interview with a Norwegian author. She's called Olag Nilsen, and she talked for the first time about her experience with her son, who had what she described as regressive autism,
Okay.
which was that he evolved normally until he was 3 or 4. And
Okay.
then he lost his capacity for language and kind of disappeared. And for me as a parent, that just, I was so devastated by that, because it, for me, that's a horror movie, you know.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if your child is born with severe autism, you love that child easily as he or she is. But if you have that experience of communicating verbally and that goes away, it's hard not to feel that, oh, my child is trapped inside here somehow. It's the, you know, that it's a very complicated grief, and it just haunted me, and it stayed with me a long time. And at one point I thought maybe that could be part of my story, because it's already about how childhood is kind of closed off for adults, and what's more closed off than a child with severe autism. And at the same time, I could, in this weird genre that's a supernatural story, I could tell that story of kind of communicating and then losing that communication with your child, which had touched me so that was the start of it. And then I just started to delve into like autism and all aspects of autism, and was very fascinated by that, because it's such I mean, it's such a varied diagnosis. You know, you can't find two people with autism
Yeah.
that have the same symptoms. It's a very, and you diagnose by observing. So suddenly it felt like you could, it gave a lot of leeway to create the character that I felt was true. And when I talked to people who had autistic children, and when I did my research, they felt like, yeah, it could really, I could be true to that diagnosis and that experience, at the same time tell my story. Right. So that's why, how it happened.
Yeah, well, and I also, I think disability, especially with nonverbal characters, can be used in a way like they're mystical. But here you give Anna agency in a way that I haven't seen these like people on the spectrum, characters on the spectrum have, in a way that was exciting. You know what I mean? Like I think you
No,
gave
thank
her
you.
a disabled person an agency that you don't see a lot. And I think in speaking about it and how you wanting to depict it, I think that was really incredible how you have her still reclaim agency despite the fact everyone treating her like she's delicate.
Everyone, and you even think, maybe is she mentally handicapped? You know, you're not, because you don't know with people with severe autism how how does it function inside? You don't have access to it, so people assume that they are that they don't have the same intellectual capacity, but it might just be different. You don't know. You know what I mean? And I found that mysterious in an interesting way. And I've always been interested in how characters appear in one way, and then you get to know them and you understand that that was completely wrong. The idea you had in the beginning was completely wrong. And I feel that goes for like any character, and doesn't have to be any disability or whatever. You just use those prejudices that we all have, you know. And for me, I feel in films we have this kind of saying that characters need to change during a story for the story to be meaningful or to have impact on the spectator. But often that change is very false. I mean, people don't change that much in real life. I feel it's like they might have a moment of insight, they might change a little, but usually they just keep on doing what they've always done. But I feel that a story can be as meaningful and as have as much impact if you just change your perception of a character. So they might not change that much, but you open them up to the spectator, so they have like, oh, he's completely different than I thought, or she's completely different than I thought. And I feel that's what happens with the autistic character, that her sister in the beginning is just jealous of her because the attention she gets because she has this disability, and then at the end she has seen a little of what's inside of her and will never treat her in the same way again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about, your characters changing, and the films that you've both directed and written, that is paranormal, supernatural or not, you have that theme running throughout. And I'm curious what draws you to write, because you fluctuate between kind of like traditional narrative, drama, romance, and horror slash, genre elements. So I'm curious what draws you to projects with these genre elements and the way you're able to weave in and out of the genre.
I'm very lucky making movies here in Norway with a lot of state subsidies, and that I don't have to conform to a genre. I can do the movie I want, So it's hopefully that won't go away soon. But for the moment, I feel if I write something, and usually I can start with like more a theme, characters, whatever. And with this, I felt okay. I understood quite soon that this will go in a horror direction. But while writing, I feel, well, maybe I'm too interested in this relationship with the sisters and the parents and the drama, and maybe like horror film purists will say it's not a horror film, and drama people will say, no, this is not a real drama. But then I just say, no, if I am interested in this, someone else will be as well. So I just kind of navigate like that and try to keep my freedom as a filmmaker. But I think what I really enjoy going in that horror genre direction is that you can be so visual. It's a very cinematic genre. I love writing scenes with two people talking in a cafe. I think I can do that quite well. But when I do that with Joachim Trier, who I make movies with, is that we really try to find a way to make that cinematic, by going into their minds and what they're thinking and feeling, and it's heavy lifting. But in a genre movie, you get that visual storytelling it's ingrained in the genre, and you need to create visual style, and you need to tell stuff in with sounds and atmosphere, and you can go very dark without losing your audience, I think, which is interesting.
Well, Eskil, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today about The Innocents. Thank you so much, and have a lovely rest.
Well, thank you for talking about the movie. Yeah.